Hello and welcome to today's Created to Create show. I have with me the lovely Toni Risson. Welcome, Toni.
Thank you, Michelle.
Now, I started these because I believe everyone was created to create, and this is generally our author interview series. And so, when did you first know or first start writing?
Look, I would like to tell you that I trundled off to school with my little cardboard suitcase and a burning desire to be Jane Austen. But um, yeah, it wasn't like that. And I feel like my Christian story is not a starry story either. You know, you hear these wonderful stories of people that were drug addicts or murdered someone and found God in jail. And I haven't got those stories. I've been a Christian since I was a tiny little girl. And I went off to school and was just a good girl, and I liked school and I liked writing, and I just did my best. But having said that, I might not have really had this burning desire to write, but I think I've really had a connection with words, because I can remember, and this would be before primary school, so maybe 3 or 4, going out to mum, and she was in the garden weeding gerbils. In my imagination, she was weeding gerbils. And I had a piece of paper and I'd gotten a pencil and just sort of gone like that in lines, like rows of it, like I had
Mm.
seen other people's writing. And I took it out to mum and asked her to read it to me. And she was busy, and probably my brother was there by then, and she just said, no, it doesn't say anything. And she was young, really young, so she wasn't realizing she was traumatizing a young writer. So I went back inside and I did it again. I did some more rows and took about out to her and said, what about this? Does this say anything? Can you read this? And she couldn't read that either. And I'm pretty sure in a third time, all good fairy tales go 3 times. And then she said, look, these look a bit like E's, and these look a bit like N's and M's. And when you look at it, O's and E's and N's and M's, they're going to be there. You won't find any R's or S's. But she said it doesn't mean anything yet. So I think I was fascinated by the fact that these marks that you make on a piece of paper can mean something in someone else's head. I just couldn't work out how how you how
Mhm.
you figured those lines of squiggles to be meaningful for someone else. And when I was in primary school, because I was a good girl, um, it was a one-teacher school, and you know how the inspectors come around to schools and the teachers always tell you that the inspector's coming to inspect you, but of course they're inspecting the teacher. And he gave the inspector some assignment that I'd done. I think it was a project on growing tomatoes or something. And the inspector told me to go home and tell my mother I was an asset to the school. It was all I could do not to burst into tears, because I had no idea what that word meant. But I didn't know, I'm not a little asset. Like, I just thought it was the most awful thing you could be. If he'd have said I was a little liability, I'd have been much happier with that. So I think that probably sums up my relationship with words. They're confusing and frustrating, but I can't leave them alone.
So then, when you started writing, what did you write?
Probably as an adult, starting writing as an adult,
Yeah.
when I had 4 kids. The last 2 were twins, and so I gave up work I was an art teacher and an English teacher in high school. I gave up work to raise them, and when the twins were getting up into primary school, I went to uni and did a degree part-time. And one of the subject in the very first semester was called creative writing in the publishing industry. And I did that one first, because you could sort of pick which subjects you were going to do. Yeah, I made a significant connection with the lecturer, who was, we were about the same age, we had the same name. And I wrote a children's story, and she was in with people in UQ, and that first children's story was published by UQP. And then I think within a year or two there was a second one that was a middle school reader. Yeah, so that's where I started.
So you started with writing for children, and who are you writing for now?
I'm currently writing history of a family that had a shoe shop in Ipswich for 120 years. So it's the job involves talking about 5 generations of people and the shoe shop as it progressed and came to an end. But I'm also wanting it to be a bit more than just a family story. So it's going to have a thread of the history of shoes going through it as well, so that that will increase the readership, I think, if it's got a beautiful shoe on the cover and got a little bit of what I'm going to call footnotes all the way through about shoes. I think it'll be a really good book, really interesting book.
I'm loving the photos of shoes that I keep seeing
I
popping up on
know.
socials. It's so fun.
Yeah, well, the one I did before that,
Yeah.
well, 2 before that was a truck book. So it's been out
Mm.
for a year, and I didn't know anything about trucks. So I feel like I'm ahead of the curve with shoes because I know heaps about
You
shoes.
know something about shoes.
Yeah.
Were you asked to write that, or is it
The
something that,
truck book or the shoe
well,
book?
both? Yeah, both.
The truck book came about because the fellow who owned the company and wanted to document the story, he went to the local historical society and just said, do you know any historians around who would be interested in writing that? And yeah, the president just got in touch with me. And when he asked me, you know how, like, I don't make plans for my life, and I guess I just assume every opportunity that comes is God opening a door, and I expect he will shut it if it's not him. So when I was asked to do this, I just thought, like your first thought, as always, is, oh my goodness, I don't know anything about trucks. Like, how can I write a book about trucks? But I felt like, no, just give it a go. It's not going to be really different from writing an assignment about some other thing you don't know anything about, you find out. And so I thought I'll just go and talk to the man. And we talked about 4 hours and we both really liked each other. By the end of that, it was not really a question.
Mm.
So, yeah, just got into it that way. And then I think now
Cool.
I've got a bit of a reputation for being able to sit with people for hours and listen to their stories and put it into a form that is meaningful for other people.
Mm.
I think I learned with the truck book, I think I learned about myself that I'm a good listener because I don't feel like I'm a good not like I don't go to parties and just, I'm not the belle of the ball. I was a kid at school who was sitting on a seat under a tree somewhere reading a book. I wasn't that kid. Yeah, so with the truck book, I think I interviewed about 60 people who were employees in some form or another, or related, or office staff. And the longest one went for 10 hours, a really old truck, well, not really old, but in his 80s, truck
Mm.
driver, who just came prepared, and he had a list, and he wasn't leaving that room until that list was done.
Wow.
It was, I think we started at 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock or something. It was 7 before I just said, Bill, I can't do this anymore. I have to go home. Um, yeah, so I think I'm good at listening to people
Mm.
in a way that makes them want to keep telling me stories, telling me
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
And, you have to actually spend quite a lot of time with someone like that before you get the juicy things, because you're looking for the drama and the funny things and the sad things. You're looking for those highlights of any kind of a story. And you have to actually spend quite a lot of time before those things come out.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Mm.
And the shoe story, is that similar? Somebody approached you or did you approach them?
Yes, no, somebody just approached me.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's cool. I love
Yeah,
that.
and in between, I've done one for the State Library about a Greek family, because I know heaps
Uh,
about the Greek
yeah.
migration story, because the Greek café phenomenon is a particular interest and expertise.
Mhm.
And so this family had started out with cafes and then ended up owning most of the cinemas and bowling alleys and drive-ins around southeast Queensland. So that was
Mhm.
a 3-generation story. 4, I suppose. There's a little bit about the 4th one.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that involved a lot of talking. He had kept a really good archive, so there was a lot of work involved in just digging through things at the State Library's caretaking, but
Mhm.
time with him too, just talking to him and understanding his stories and his view of his life a bit more. The truck one was different because the company had been sold and then everything just gets thrown in the bin. So it was
Yeah.
really his memories, photo albums, and talking to his drivers.
Yeah, you had to go back in and dig up all the information again. Yeah. Incredible. So, knowing that you've done those stories about people's lives and the history, do you feel boxed in any way into what you're going to write next?
I don't think I feel boxed in. I think creative people, a good idea just goes past and they just go sniffing after it. So, whatever came up, I think that's why my life is so hectic,
Yeah.
is I don't sit back and go, oh, how much time will that take? How much time will that take? I just go with it and, it either comes to fruition or it doesn't. So whatever comes next, I'd be ready for it probably.
Mm, yeah. I find it fascinating how you weave the story in and out of what you've created in your books. It's incredible. What's the hardest thing you find about being a writer?
Oh, the hardest thing's not winning.
Winning what? What are you
Everybody
winning?
knows that. um, you're writing short stories all the time for competitions and various things. And one competition I put a story in, and then I found out later it had 1,000 entries. You got Buckley's of winning that, and even when they're smaller competitions, most people don't win. Only one or two people win. So
Hmm.
that's not fun.
This is
Um,
true.
yeah, I don't like competition much. I'd rather we could just celebrate together, enjoy our stories. But
Mm,
it is a competitive world, being a writer, and the writing marketplace is competitive. And everybody has to put the same amount of work into writing that story and polishing it and getting perfect and paying the entry fee or whatever it is. So most of those people don't get anything for that. So that's hard. The other thing I find hard is carving out time for writing, because I think if you're the sort of person that leaves home, goes to the office, sit down, you just work for 8 hours or whatever it is, and you come home. But when you're working from home, and particularly if you've been a stay-at-home mum and kids just think of you as the woman in the house, like if you said something to my kids that I was working, they'd be gobsmacked. They probably don't think of me as working. They think, oh, mum's just there. Mum's not doing anything because she's there. Yeah, so between things that you get distracted with at home and family needs, but also because of that creativity, you just get yourself involved in so many things. I was the president of Women Writers for a couple of years, and that is a full-time job, really. If you did that well, that would be a full-time job. And I'm in the executive on another organisation as well. So things just take time, and
yeah.
I'm not good at organising my time
Hmm.
and making really solid whacks of writing time.
Yeah.
With the
Well,
result that I end up, after everything's finished, I'll sit there writing till 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't think, as you get older, I don't think that works for you as well.
definitely not. I used to be a night writer and now I'm a morning writer. And I that's one thing I like to say to people if they go, oh yeah, I want to write a book. It's like start. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
It takes way longer than I think any of us thought it would take to actually finish the book. What's one mistake that you've made that others can avoid?
I don't know if I would call it a mistake, because I think everything happens for a reason, or God weaves it into the pattern that he wants to make.
Mm.
But when I had that chance with the UQP in the beginning with children's books, if I had just gone down that road, that would have probably got me a lot further in that direction than I went. But I was just at the start of a university course, and I got involved with the Greek café research at that point. I went on to do a PhD, and that was about lollies. So, in my computer, there's a manuscript about a picture book about mermaids. The lolly manuscript's still sitting there. There's another middle school reader. There's a young adult fiction. There's a time travel adult novel. So there's so much stuff there. I think if you want to do well, if you want to be one of the big writers that becomes famous and does well, you need to focus. You need to pick one area and just go there. And I didn't do that. And I'm not sorry about that. I don't regret
Mm.
any of the things that I've done. And where I am now, writing about trucks and cinemas and shoes, I love it. I'm having a great time. So I wouldn't have not wanted to be here. But I wouldn't be here if I had just gone, right, this is what I'm going to be. I'm going to write for children. So I wouldn't call it a mistake, but I think if you want to be really successful as a writer, you probably need to pick one
Yeah.
road and put your foot down and keep going on that road.
Yeah. And focus in that one area. Yeah. I think I would agree with that. It's hard to do multi-genre and make a name for yourself in multiple areas. Yeah, definitely. So there's a lot of people who are wanting to start writing or who have written a few things, but they're not sure. What's one piece of advice that you would like to leave them before we finish today?
Look, if people say they want, what should I do if I want to be a writer? I'll just say, be a plumber. It's actually, you know, plumbers, they rock up, they do their job. If they come on time on the day they said they were coming, you love them more than your own children, you know. Um, electricians, they turn up, they do their job, they get paid, they go home. Teachers, though it's a hard job, you go, you do your job, you get paid, you go home. Doctors, everyone. That's how it works. But when you're a writer, you pay to do courses and upgrade with workshops. You spend every bit of time you've got writing and polishing and paying entry fees and all of that. And then you put your work out there. Not only do people not buy it, not pay you for your work, they just go, yeah, don't really like that. And then they don't have to pay anything. Whereas, the rest of the world doesn't function like that. So I think you really going into it, you can't, if you're not going to be a plumber, if you want to write, you can't really think of it as an occupation. Certainly not to start with. I think you just have to do it because you want to write. You want to do it.
Mm, yeah, great advice.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, thank you for joining me. I enjoy our conversations whenever we meet at the different conferences we get to, and I'm sure the viewers would have loved this chat today. Please hit that like and subscribe and go search out Tony on socials. And where can we find your books, Tony?
The State Library Bookshop has the Greek Cafe books and the truck book. The shoe book and the film book don't exist yet, but
They're coming.
yeah, if you, I'm on Facebook, so if you ever want to know anything about what I'm doing or how to buy books, just message me and we can organise it.
And I can pop that link down below in the show
Yeah,
notes.
yeah, that would be good.
Yes. So thank you for joining me today. Hit that like and subscribe button, and we will see you next time on the Created to Create show.
Thank you, Michelle.